Okay, today we're looking at the Screwtape Letters, chapter 9. And in this chapter, Screwtape is trying to teach his nephew how to use the down times properly. So he told him before that there's undulations in people's lives, there's ups and downs. And he says we really need to use the down times properly. He tells his nephew that the down times are a perfect opportunity for sensual temptations. This may surprise you, he says, because there is more physical energy and therefore more potential appetite at the high times. You must remember that the power to resist is much higher at that time when the patient feels the best. So he's saying the high times you might think are better to bring about sensual temptations or temptations when he has more appetite and he is feeling better, but actually that is not the case because he is more able to fight you off and fight the temptation off when he is feeling good about himself. So this is very important for us to understand, is that we are susceptible to temptation more when we are feeling down than when we are doing well spiritually. And this seems kind of obvious, but it's something to keep in mind. When we're full out in ministry and we're very busy, it seems like we're doing well, and we are too busy basically to be tempted, and we are so full of zeal for what we're doing that temptation is very little in our life. But it is when we slow down for a bit, is when we have a holiday, or when we get tired and we need rest, that is when the temptation is going to come about its strongest. And this we see in many people's lives, such as Elijah. It is after Elijah defeated all the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel that he gets depressed. He has a high time of ministry, and it is right after the high time of ministry that he is attacked spiritually. Elijah, in 1 Kings chapter 18, he took all the prophets of Baal up on Mount Carmel, and they had a competition to see who would answer their prayers with fire from heaven. And obviously he won, since he was a servant of the true God. And all the people of Israel were able to see that God was a real God, and they went about and they killed all the prophets of Baal. When Queen Jezebel found out about it, she threatened him, and she said that she was going to kill him. And so this is what happens to Elijah. 1 Kings 19, 3-9. Elijah, who was so courageous to stand up against all these people, here he is running for his life. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went days' journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, Get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then lay down again. The angels of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, Get up and eat. The journey is too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. After a time of ministry, a powerful time of ministry, Elijah becomes depressed and scared. He leaves his friends behind. He goes alone in the desert, and he wants to die. And he is saying to God, I'm all alone. There's no one with me. This is what he says to God later on. No one else follows God like me. And God tells him, you are not alone. There's 7,000 people that I have reserved for myself who have not bowed down to Baal. And so there are other people. But in the time of depression, you feel very much alone and sad. And this is a time when Satan attacks. Now, it's really neat to see how God understands this time. He sends food. He doesn't try to teach Elijah anything at that time. He just gives him food and rest. And it's just amazing. It is after this time of depression that God sends Elijah to Elisha to anoint him a prophet so that he can take over his ministry in the future. So he's going to give him rest by having a help called Elisha. So the important thing here to notice is that when we are doing well in ministry and we're full of energy, that is not the time we need to be extremely careful spiritually. It is when we're in the down times when we are going to have a break, and we're going to go on a holiday and we're going to go relax and we want to relax, it is at that time that we're going to be most attacked by Satan. Screwtape goes on and tells his nephew, "You must also understand that the lust given during his low times is much less likely to be pure and more likely to be perverted. You are much more likely to make your man a sound drunkard by pressing drink on him as a painkiller when he is dull and weary than by encouraging him to use it as a means of merriment among his friends when he is happy." So Screwtape is saying to his nephew, it is during the down times that bad habits are formed. It is during the down times that you can use something that is good at its roots and make it into something perverted and something that he becomes completely addicted to. When a person is happy, he will use these things properly, such as wine or such as drink. But when he is in his down times, you can make him a drunkard. And we see the example of this in King David as well, where King David, he should have been protecting Israel and fighting for Israel at that time, but it was a downtime for him. He wasn't where he was supposed to be, and at that time he was attacked by Satan, and his lust became a huge problem. It was at that time that his lust for women completely destroyed his family by what he ended up doing. He ended up committing murder and stealing someone else's wife, and his family was completely destroyed after this. His relationship with his sons and his daughters and among his sons and daughters was a real mess after his sin. And it is during the downtime that he was attacked and that he really messed up his life. Here we have King David that should have been at war, but he wasn't. So possibly it was a downtime, or possibly he wasn't doing his responsibility. If it was a downtime, that's okay. We have downtimes. There's times where we cannot do our duties because we're just feeling so bad. Those times come. The up and downs are normal in our lives. It happened to Elijah. It happened to David. It happened to all kinds of people in the Bible. What we must understand is we need more protection from God and His help at those times, because that is the time where we can completely destroy our lives. And that is the time where Satan can pervert things and completely destroy our lives by the temptation that he brings. So when you are having a downtime, it's not that you're a bad Christian or anything. It just means you're human. But what you do need to do during that time is that you need to pray for protection and be aware and stay away from anything that could be of temptation at that time. Screwtape goes on, "Never forget that any pleasure at its base is God's grounds. I know that we have won many souls through pleasure, but it is still His invention. We have never created a pleasure. We can only push humans to pervert the pleasure that God has given them by using them in ways and degrees which He forbids. Therefore, we try to take any natural pleasure and make it the least natural possible. We try to give the man an increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure." So Screwtape is just basically saying that any pleasure really at its base comes from God. God created all kinds of different pleasures, just different tastes for food and different foods to eat and different things in this world. And Satan, all he can do is take those pleasures and make you use them in the wrong way, or make you use them excessively in a way that is not pleasing to God in order to destroy your life. But pleasure at its base is something that God has given mankind. Screwtape goes on, "When your patient is at its highest, let him imagine that he should always be in that state. When he is at his lowest, make him think that this state will never end." Screwtape's advice is that when the patient is feeling really well, when he's doing really good in his life, make him think that that's the way he should be all the time. And so when he does get into the low state, which will happen no matter what, it doesn't matter who you are in this life, there's going to be highs and lows. When he gets to that low state, he's going to say, "Oh, what a horrible Christian I am. Oh, how bad I'm doing." So make him think that a Christian is always good, always well, and that a Christian is never depressed. And that will be good for you. Don't let him understand that there's ups and downs in life and that that is okay because humans are physical beings. And then when he's at his lowest state, make him feel that that lowest state will never end and that basically he's always been there and that he's always been a bad Christian. Make him give up hope that the high state will come. So don't let him understand about ondulation. Another thing Screwtape says is try to get him to live in a high state of mind by his own powers, despite the fact he is going through a hard time. So when he is going through a hard time, try to make him believe that he should not be if he was a good Christian, and certainly make him try to be in a high state on his own power. Make him a hypocrite. Make him act like he's doing well when he really isn't doing well. This is something that we all need to understand again, is we should never try to live a Christian life on our own strength. This is not something that we can do. Whatever we try to do in life, we need to do it with the help of God, not on our own power. So when you have a low time, when you're having a hard time praying, don't make up your mind to pray more or say, okay, I'm just going to go out and be happy. Instead, pray and say, God, help me. I'm having a hard time right now. I'm sad. I don't want to see so-and-so, but they're coming. Please help me to enjoy their presence. Help me to enjoy what I'm supposed to be doing. Help me to pray more. I don't feel like praying right now. Or help me to love more because I don't feel like loving. We should never say, oh, from now on, sorry, God, I've been depressed. I'm going to be joyful from now on. That is not what we should say. This is what Jesus says about this. John 15, 1-5. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from Jesus, we can do absolutely nothing. There's nothing we can do. If Jesus was not in our life, we would fall away continually. And it is not by deciding by our own power to change that we're going to change. It is deciding to change and then asking God to change us. The decision to change is from us. As we listen to the Holy Spirit, we choose to say, oh yes, I do want to change that. But then we submit ourselves to God and we say, please change this in me because I cannot change it by myself. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through him who gives me strength. It is through him that we have strength to change, and it is through his strength that we get through hard times and low times and times where we're depressed. Okay, and that is chapter 9 for us.